It feels like AI can do everything. Write the code, analyze the data. It can even suggest your next move. But there's one thing AI can't do. Think for your people. With AI, the real advantage isn't the tools. Anyone can do that. The real advantage is human readiness. That's why the smartest companies aren't asking, do we have AI? They're asking, can our people keep up? To build a learning program that keeps your people ahead, learn with Docebo. Docebo. Never stop learning.
This podcast is brought to you by Avocado Mattress. And if healthy, comfortable sleep matters to you, this is one organic brand worth knowing. That's because what you sleep on actually matters.
Most mattresses rely on synthetic foams and chemical materials that trap heat, break down over time, or off-gas. Avocado does it differently. Their mattresses are handcrafted with natural materials, organic latex, organic wool, and organic cotton, designed to be naturally cooling, incredibly supportive, and long-lasting. They're certified organic by GOTS and meet multiple non-toxic and safety certifications. Made for people who care about their health and the environment without sacrificing comfort. I love that Avocado proves you don't have to choose between comfortable, supportive sleep and your values. And now you can get up to 15% off all Avocado mattresses. Just go to avocadogreenmattress.com. Get up to 15% off at avocadogreenmattress.com. avocadogreenmattress.com.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new interview of Dare to Be Fearless. Dare to Be Fearless was my weekly podcast that I did that helped me land my Radio Disney show, Fearless Every Day. Now running the other two businesses, I'm not able to do too many episodes a year anymore of Dare to Be Fearless. I would love to bring it back, but when I do have founders on now, there are certainly founders that are very specific to the type of content I like to talk about with business. This means exited founders. This means founders who have a lot of experience with hiring, with figuring out and helping a lot of people who watch and listen to this show, Gen Z, figure out what to not do, what to do right on job interviews. So if you want to listen to all 200 plus other episodes of Dare to Be Fearless, you can find it on YouTube by searching up Alexa Curtis, or you can go on Spotify or anywhere else you listen to podcasts and shows and just type in Dare the number 2 Be Fearless. I'll also link about today's guest and his website for his company, along with Chief Swag Officer, a promo code if you want your own microphone covers, as well as a promo code for the love list in the show notes of this show. So John, you are the CEO, the co-founder of Wonder Sauce, which I love. I love as well that you told me that you guys were basically coming up with random names or websites back in the day to try and buy, and Wonder Sauce was one of them, and that's how you came up with it.
With no intention of ever turning into a company.
I always love interviewing founders, and that's part of the story. Like, when you started this company, and we'll get into obviously, the brands you've worked with from Salesforce to many more, but the evolution as a founder, some of the most successful founders I've interviewed didn't start the company expecting to be millionaires overnight. So what was the story of why you started Wonder Sauce?
I mean, it was pure, right? I mean, we were working in advertising in the early 2000s. It was like 2005, 2006. And just bouncing around different agencies in New York. And, I didn't go to school for advertising and marketing. I kind of just stumbled into it. And when I found a passion for it, I thought I was pretty good at it. And I got really lucky early in my career. I got to work on a bunch of really cool projects that gave me a lot of confidence, some of it false. By the time I was like 25, 26, I thought I knew a lot. And I happened to meet my co-founder at the time, and he had similar energy. And we would always go out after work and have some beers and talk about what we would do differently at the agency. If we ran it, we would do it this way, that way. And we were always one day we're going to do our thing. And those conversations just literally accelerated over 6 months, where I remember vividly standing outside of a Walk Up in Soho, and I called my mom and I was like, I'm going to quit my job and start a company. And she's like, wait, what? And it was a good job and all this stuff. And that was it. It was just out of the drive to create something that we thought was better and more fun.
When did you launch this agency?
2011.
So I actually started a blog back in the day in 2011. So I've seen the evolution of how social media has changed, how brands have partnered. This was back when I was starting, when Fashion Week is still at Lincoln Center. I like to say this was when times were so much more authentic. Were you working at an ad agency then prior to leaving and starting this one?
I was, yeah.
And what was your opinion at that point of brands, of marketing in the space. I mean, I'm assuming you left because there was something that was maybe missing that you wanted to do on your own.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, I actually really liked the companies I worked with prior to Wonder Sauce. It was more around like the nuance, the process changes we would do. But I'm 41, and I always say like it's a really weird age of people who grew up with and without the internet. And I think like the journey of Wonder Sauce and really my life has always just been like new technology hitting every few years, and it was never like, oh my god, we have to learn this and master it because we can monetize it. It was just like, you're hanging out one day and you're like, that computer has the internet, cool. Like, Mom, can I get AOL? And then like one day we had like Napster and LimeWire, and then like college pre and post Facebook. Like, I think we got it junior year, and I remember like that was amazing. And then my 20s with like when I first got an iPhone, like that was crazy. Then like, obviously there's been like crypto and now AI and all this stuff. So it's just like a constant progression. So I always say like Wonder Sauce was kind of our only constant was change. We were always kind of evolving with the speed of really the internet.
When you started, it was just you and your co-founder?
Yeah.
And it was just, I'm assuming, a 2-person then team. And now you have a staff of what, 100 people?
Yeah. I mean, it grew from 2 people, and it was only 2 people for like a week. And I always say like every week someone just showed up, and it just didn't stop until like 3 or 4 years later when we were like 80 people. It was wild. I mean, we had no funding, we had no clients, and I think it was a mix of timing and a little bit of skill that allowed us to just scale really fast. And we were like oddly responsible with like boring stuff like cash on hand and managing accounts receivable and lines of credit. So we never like took money out. So we were ready to like invest when there was momentum.
How do you bootstrap an ad agency? Because this is not like an e-commerce business. You don't need inventory. So you start this company, and then what happens?
I mean, you start the company and you need someone to pay you. I mean, it's like, it's no different than being like working at a nail salon or a landscaping business, right? You need clients to do a service. It's a services industry. So if you claim to make great content or plan amazing media or build great websites, then someone has to like buy your service. And it's as simple as that. Once money starts coming in, for us, it was about delivering amazing work that would get people talking. Not even necessarily like to win awards or to like get press. It was to just get word of mouth out there, so referrals would drive our business. And I think like from like what we're doing here, talking on a podcast, this is about as like marketing and advertising as I get. All of our work is like all done through reputation, word of mouth, and referrals. So it was like a very organic build of just produce good work, have strong relationships, do what you say, and it'll pay off.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between like consultants and then ad agencies and then the Deloittes of the world? Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know how different they are, and also where they play into a brand's success. When you're looking at like a Salesforce, or when you're looking at like a Nike, I mean, with those larger companies, how many agencies come together, or pieces of this pie, for the graphics, for the marketing? Because a lot of people don't realize that it's a lot of different sides to, an entire even marketing strategy. Oh yeah, I mean, the bigger the brand, the more complex the business and marketing strategy will be. I mean, at a very high level, you have your consulting groups, like the large ones that are out there, and we're not really in that space at all. Like they're getting paid to basically make pivotal shifts in business. Maybe it's migrating a company that was traditionally doing sales offline to online. Maybe it's diversifying into a different market. But it's like bigger strategic plays that play out over a course of a few years. And from those recommendations usually spits out like tactical projects that like an agency like Wonder Sauce would come in and execute on. So we really play in the space of, there's like a layer of strategy and consulting that we do, but it's like through the lens of executing something that needs to be done now. Like we're producing like an influencer activation for a brand that needs to go live in May, and it's going to be in 8 markets. We have to source those people, get the right type of content, make sure that the content cadence of when it comes out is going to be good, and then back it with like brand creative and paid media. We're
maybe making a website, and it's a business that needs to like migrate all their content to a new platform. So we're doing like a technical assessment on like what CMS or backend system they need to migrate to. So we're like making a recommendation there, and then we're doing all of the user experience, the design work, the technology. So like what we do is like one part strategy, and then it's really like craft and execution. So traditionally, like consulting is really around like you're going to get a deck of ideas and maybe like a blueprint. And at least what we do on the agency services side is one part strategy, but then it's like pure execution and delivery. Like we need to put stuff in market because our work needs to be effective.
Interesting. With the content creators and the influencers, I mean, I know you're the CEO of the company, so I don't know how much you really look into these people, but I would assume you've probably trained a lot of your team in what to look for. A lot of people who listen to this show, I mean, they want to be content creators, they want to be influencers and get brand partnerships. Can you walk people listening through how you guys choose who to work with, what stands out for you when you're working with these larger brands and trying to source content creators or influencers in certain markets?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the stuff that you see online when you're like laying in bed death scrolling. It's what it is. And it's a really smart and effective marketing tactic. So we look for authenticity and people who actually enjoy creating content. So you can be like broad in terms of the type of stuff you create, but I think where we really like to focus is people that are amazing at like niches. Maybe they're like amazing at doing like skincare tutorials that are like funny and cheeky and weave in pop culture, and they can do it in like 30 seconds. So it's like that's their thing. Maybe they do like short form comedy and they're able to kind of like toe the line of like getting attention with like pranks and whatever else is relevant within like that niche. But it's really like finding people that are good and really enjoy the creation. They understand the platforms, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Snap, whatever, and how to like create content for those platforms. And then there's a level of like operational maturity. Like, you know, if you're going to work for a brand, there are rules, there are deadlines, and there are things that we don't want to be associated with. So there's a level of that too, because there's still like a contracting lens and all that stuff. So yeah.
I'm always so curious because I think there are tools out there, right, that kind of like can feed your agency, like here's 20 people to look at, or do you have someone at the company who like, you know, goes on TikTok and types in like skincare person under 10,000 followers?
Oh, no, yeah, we do all manual outreach.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And what makes you guys reach out to someone? I mean, how much do you really, if you're putting, say, a campaign together of 10 people with under 10,000 followers, like how much does your team look at, I guess, each influencer or person to decide this would be a fit for this brand?
Well, there are platforms. We use them sometimes. But for the most part, like I think you get the best results when you really look for a niche and kind of do your own manual outreach. And it's really just like going in, trying to find one or two people that kind of check the box, and then like quite literally immersing yourself in that world and letting the algorithm serve up people that are similar, seeing who people follow. It's kind of just like as gritty as that. Like once you find people that are good, you know, you start cataloging lists. So maybe you have like wellness, fitness, food, automotive, whatever, and you start to have a list of people that you really like, and you build it over the course of months and years. So we're not ideally starting from zero every single time. We're able to have these like well-cultivated lists. I mean, we do the same thing with podcasts. Like we love independent podcasts where we can reach out to the founder of the podcast and say like, we have this brand, we think you'd be perfect for an ad read or a sponsored content segment. What do you think? And you know, doing that without any backlog is a lot of work, but when you do it over time, you're like, oh, these 5 people would be perfect. Let's reach out. So it's like, those are like the little things that they take time to actually like develop the lists, but the hard work and manual effort put into it, it pays off because the work's better.
Do you feel like brands who use micro influencers or whatnot in comparison to if they had access to a Kim Kardashian, where are you going to get more responses from?
Probably Kim Kardashian.
You really think?
Well, no, I mean, she's like obviously like huge.
But then again, doesn't she post so many different brands? So like, how do you know what she's saying is even authentic?
So I think that there's no right or wrong answer to this question. I think that if you're going to use like an A-list celebrity to be affiliated with your brand, you need to do it with the right intention, because you're bringing an individual to the table who probably has as much or more clout than your brand. And a lot of celebrities now have brands, as you mentioned. So it's very easy to have your brand be confused as so-and-so's brand, even if they're just a spokesperson. And you also need to make sure there's no conflict of interest with the rest of their brands in their portfolio. So I think that like brands are pretty smart to this now, and so are celebrities. But I still think that it's an incredibly powerful, marketing partnership. And then I think with micro influencers, the same rules can be said too. You don't want to find people that are just kind of like partnering with everyone, and 3 weeks later, before your content even hits, they're like talking to competitors. So that's why I think we put it in a time to try and find kind of like people that aren't on the platform solely, and it might be a little bit more authentic.
I want to talk about what you said about celebrities and having brands, because I think that's really important. But I'm also curious from your experience, for anyone who wants to get paid to post, right, who has dreams of working with these larger brands but doesn't have millions of followers, what would your advice be to them of like, okay, you're a newer content creator, maybe you have a small cult following. Should they be cold pitching people? Should they just be waiting for like the Wonder Sauces to just find them in this sea where there's millions of people trying to do the same thing online?
I think like it never hurts to reach out to people. Just make sure that you have examples like ready to go live. I mean, if you reach out and you get someone's attention at a company or a hiring manager or whatever, and it links to your Instagram or your TikTok, like that's your resume.
Yeah.
So if it's good, it'll work. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I always say that whenever someone emails me too, like even if they want to work in social media, having like a Canva of your, right? If you're applying for a social media job and you're able to have such a beautiful portfolio of your social media work, that makes me take you so much more seriously. What you said about celebrities and brands, I've always been convinced that a lot of people like Reese Witherspoon, with Hello Sunshine, and Kim Kardashian with Skims, at the end of the day, like being a celebrity, being an influencer can be so fleeting. So would you agree that a lot of these celebrities who go on to start brands, even like Shay Mitchell with, the luggage brand, they're doing that because maybe they love it and they see a need in the market, but also there is that element that being a celebrity or an influencer, it can only really get you to a certain point. So having then another business you can sell product that's not based on you is really good as an overall brand or business?
Yeah, I think people do things for different reasons. Sometimes it's because, having influence is almost like a free media buy. And if there's a good idea to attach to it, you can get to market much easier than someone who, doesn't have any clout or anything like that. And I think also it gives you, if you have some money and some experience in the world too, you can take passions and you can activate on it. So I think a lot of the best celebrity brands too, like come from a place of passion where it's something like they always wanted to do and life took them in a different path first and they kind of circled back to this. But I think like it's always been a thing where like, celebrity and brand building have always kind of like intertwined quite a bit.
I know I'd probably put you on the spot, but do you have any celebrities that you are a fan of that like you really like the brand they've built, or in that world, or even some of the favorite brands that you've worked with at Wonder Sauce?
Oh, good question. Let's see. It's tough because I feel like they change so fast, the celebrity brands. I remember years ago, we worked on a project called the Players Tribune. And it was backed by Derek Jeter, the New York Yankees shortstop, and his team, basically coming out with a sports media company with stories by the athletes going directly to their fans, and in a way almost cutting out traditional sports media. And having grown up in New York and being a Yankees fan, like that was like the coolest project ever. And so I think like that was one that stands out in my head of something that I'll always look back on fondly, being able to work on that. We built the website. We played a small role in the journey, but it was so cool. But I always love how, when a celebrity, you can tell that like the cause or the product or the business stems from personal experience. And I think that was a good example of, he survived in New York City for years and, with great handling the media.
Same with, Mark Wahlberg, right? From Wahlburgers. There's
Yeah.
so many of those around, and there's so many burger places. So that's a really influential, accessible, I feel like, company. So when you were starting Wonder Sauce, getting those first clients and like any cold pitching or outreach you had done, because having to get those clients and get in front of people is so important for people to know how to do. What was that like? From the cold pitching, if anything, to even bringing clients from the other agencies you had worked at, and even, going back to them and being like, I started my own thing. Will you give us a chance?
Yeah. So we always had this rule that we weren't going to mess with the companies we worked with. So we never poached talent from them, and we never intentionally tried to take their clients. Our approach was, honestly, looking back on it, it was so simple. So I remember one Saturday, we were sitting down, we built an Excel document of, the mission was simple. If we had 8 hours to fill during the day, because we didn't have any jobs, who would we invite for coffee, lunch, a meeting that we can tell about Wonder Sauce and whatever we plan on doing? And we started making lists of like friends of friends, and we built a list of like 40 people that we would feel comfortable emailing, texting, calling, and saying like, can you meet with us? And they were all like college friends, high school friends, family people, and people we knew through like the work world, right? And we got, I think, one or two down the list. And I remember I had coffee with some guy. We were, I'm like, we're gonna do this thing. It's me and my buddy. This is the idea, blah blah blah. And I ended up, it was a coffee during work. I went back to work, and I get like a email, my personal email. A few hours later, he's like, hey, good seeing you. Do you want to respond to this brief? And I was like, which company is this for? Is this for like? He's like, oh, it's that Wonder Sauce thing you were telling me about. I was like, oh yeah, sure. And I grabbed my buddy. I'm like, I think we got a lead. And
I love that feeling.
It was crazy. And we ended up like working like 2 days straight on this thing. We over delivered. It was like they needed like a quote, and we gave like creative ideas, a whole process diagram, like strategy, like overshot it.
Yeah.
For clearly like a company that had like way more money than we were pitching, and we sent it over, and I'm like, whew, that was like crazy. I hope we win it. I wonder if we'll get a chance to pitch, blah, blah, blah. And like 10 minutes later, I get an email back saying like, cool, when can you start? And I was like, whoa, that was it. So like, that was it. We quit our jobs and we started working on that. And while we were working on delivering that, we were going down the list. And I think we literally got like 2 or 3 names down the list, and we had like 2 clients, and then that just took off.
I really love asking founders if they believe in luck with entrepreneurship, because I never think like I believe in luck, but I think, unless you're winning the lottery, but I do believe that if you put yourself in certain situations, right, if you take the risk, that you can end up having more luck by just placing yourself in those uncomfortable things where more come out of it. I don't know necessarily like the success of any founder is based on luck, even what you're saying with that, right? Like you did enough work to where you obviously were able to prove yourself to this person to reply to your email versus just being like, I just got lucky that they said yes. What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, what's the expression? Like you make your own luck.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, being an entrepreneur or starting a business, it's pretty simple. There's complexity within it, but like anyone can make a list of people they know.
Yeah.
Like literally, you can make that on the way home. It could be about who you want to play poker with on Saturday. It could be anything. But yeah, it's about like execution and follow through. Like, are you actually comfortable like calling someone, emailing someone, and then like when you sit down for the coffee, like, do you have enough credibility to convince someone that like this is not just like a bunch of BS, or do you have, is what you're saying believable? That was another thing too. We were like so pure about the work. We were so focused on the work that like it was undeniable that that's all we cared about. It wasn't like some new whiz bang pricing model. It wasn't some like rethink of an agency where like we're gonna flip it on its head, blah blah blah. It's like, nope, we're still gonna. It's a very traditional business. We're not gonna mess with that. We're just gonna deliver like we say we will. The work's gonna be good customer service. That's it. It's simple.
When you're looking back at the beginning of your career, right, and how to prove yourself, I mean, what you just said of like, do you have enough? I like what you just said about experience or whatever. I mean, for those people who don't, right, or you're right out of college and you want to work for, someone like you, but you don't have any experience, how do they get their foot in the door? How do they stand out with that job application? I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she works in TV now, and she now wants to work for the New York Post. And, she went through 2 rounds of interviews, and then they just ghosted her. So that's kind of a 2-part question. I want to talk about that part with the job and the hiring and what you look for, but also how do you come to the table and try and get a job outside of, say, college when you have no experience?
I think you need to figure out a way to make a connection with someone. And I sympathize with people graduating right now because it's really tough. And it's funny, we just hired an intern that I had met through I think the general manager of a restaurant that my family goes to, and they were like, we were like, oh, how's your daughter doing? What is she? She must be a junior or senior now. And they're like, what are you studying? And like that turned into like the mother being like, oh, actually marketing, you should talk and blah, blah, blah. And like there was follow through and all that stuff. And I think you need to figure out a way to get beyond the form field, whether it's like LinkedIn or Indeed or any of these like scaled recruitment platforms. They're great because they've made recruitment so easy. But if it's easy, then everyone's doing it. And you have to understand that, like, if you're able to sit back and apply to 50 jobs in 3 hours, that means like everyone else can too. And what does the other side of that submit look like? Like, what is the inbox? Yeah. Where is it going? You have to think about that. Not to overwhelm you or like demoralize your, search of an internship, but like it's tough. So I know it's not realistic to make a, one-to-one human connection with like hiring managers or CEOs or people that work at companies, but figure out a way to like make it one step further than just like filling out a form, uploading a resume, whether that's like finding people that work at the company and writing a really nice email to someone that maybe is like mid-level and like, hey, like I want to be a producer at an advertising agency. I see that you're a producer. We went to similar schools. Do you have like 10 minutes to like talk to me about like what I need to do? They teach us all this stuff in school, but like, what is it really like? Do that to like 10 people that are producers or project managers that are working. One of them will get back to you. And at the very least, you'll have a conversation with someone doing the job and you'll have more knowledge to apply when you have an internship. Yeah. But if you keep doing that, you'll eventually get you'll get an interview or an internship. So it's like little things like that where like you don't necessarily have to go to the company's door and knock. You can go to the employees. That's what's cool about the internet. You can just find people. And as long as you're not creepy and like stalking, you can do it in a way where, it's endearing.
Do you feel like this generation, because I know you said you're 41 and I'm 28, but I mean, I started my business when I was so young, and I have to say, even when I'm hiring, that sometimes I really genuinely think this is some of the laziest people who are I think Gen Z is incredibly ambitious and equally incredibly lazy because they're so ready for it to just come easily. They're so ready for like their TikTok to blow up, for them to be able to quit their job, for them to be millionaires overnight. Whereas I find anyone I talk to who's obviously over the age of 30, you didn't grow up with the ability to literally get famous for doing nothing. And I'm curious, with your hiring and when people reach out to you and whatnot, if you notice any of that with this younger generation, that they're just so much more willing to constantly take the next opportunity that's more money, that's better, without, really wanting to put in the work to have a really good long career at one company?
It's a really good question. And I don't really have a single answer. I do think, I've seen a lot of what you said. There's one end of the spectrum where it's incredibly inspiring, fast-moving people that are way beyond their years. And it's humbling. And I'm like, I don't really have any advice. And I just love it. And it's like you're taking ambition and technology and it's like firepower to go as fast as you can. And it's funny, like they're not settling for like a singular path in their entrepreneurship. It's like multifaceted, and it's like two of them might be a hobby, one of them is the core business, but then the hobby scales and it becomes the thing, and it's like you're bouncing around. I mean, you kind of started it by saying like you addressed your audience by, you know, qualifying this podcast and like where your time is being focused. Like you're already talking about like things that you're splitting. So it's like that's one end of the spectrum where I think it's people that are moving so fast and it's inspiring. And I think the other end of the spectrum where, and I'm not going to say it's lazy, but it's like you're not going to be handed a job when you graduate school because you graduated school. There was always an element of having to earn that internship. Or I remember when I was an intern, I had to work for free for like 50 hours a week.
Yeah, that's how it was for me too. Back in the day, it was like slave labor being an intern.
And like we pay our interns, we always have. And I'm like, I remember like, God, I was happy to have the job. Like whatever you can call that a job, working for free. But I think like you mentioned the point around bouncing around a lot. And I've noticed that a lot for the last, you know, my entire career, that it's almost glorified to bounce around. And I think an element of why people do that is for pay. And they think that like they can always kind of level up by moving around. But I think there's like an emotional maturity skill that you can kind of develop through having to stick it out at a company for a while and see it in different phases and go through some good times, go through some bad times. Obviously, if it's not the right fit, you should leave. If you're not getting paid fairly, you should leave. If you're not being valued, you should leave. But I think like if you're having a transparent conversation with your boss or the people that are making decisions and you're clear about your aspirations, I've found that like people want to grow with you. So that's what I'm really proud of Wonder Sauce. We have people that have been there for a really long time. It's always been like the minimum is like 5 years for people.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we have people that have been there for 10 plus, like lots of people. So we really believe in like growing from within and promoting. So like, you know, our president started as a like a junior producer 12 years ago. So, you know, it's cool.
What stands out to you most when you're hiring? If you're in an interview, and what turns you off the most where you're like, I'm not hiring this person?
Across the board, it's communication, organization.
Can you tell that within a first interview?
I can tell sometimes. You can almost see how someone's brain's working when you're having a conversation. Like, are they kind of like organizing things in their thoughts? And I really like when you're having a conversation with someone and the conversation doesn't feel like an interview. Like once we get through like the brass tacks of like, talk to me about this question, this question, this question. All right, I checked the box. And I like when there's like a free-flowing conversation and it's almost like they're interviewing you as much as we're interviewing them, because that's what candidates forget. It's a two-way street. Like it's as much your decision as it is our decision. If you should hold your employer to a very high standard, and you should be really comfortable with what you're signing up for, well beyond pay and vacation and benefits. So I love when there's like a free-flowing conversation and I can see it in real time, like the recall of like, oh, you mentioned this like 10 minutes ago. I love that. So it shows me that you're listening and you're like, you're taking notes.
Engaged.
And notes are big.
Yeah.
Obviously now you can like AI takes notes and stuff, but like it still matters to me. So for me, like organization, good communication has always been like paramount. And obviously if you're a designer, developer, a writer, a strategist, like I need to see the work too. Like, so that's more of like I could look at something.
And what would make you not hire someone?
If they are disinterested in the company, you know, I like our intellectual property at Wonder Sauce. It's our people. That's our ideas. Like we're not selling software, so I need people to be passionate about what we do and our business and the services business. If you hate it and you're doing it just to get some agency experience, it's not going to work. I need this to be something that you really, really like. So I look for passion in the space. I look for like, did you do your research on this agency? And so that's one big thing. If it feels like too transactional, like it's just all about the perks.
Yeah.
That's kind of a turnoff.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else. It's kind of it.
Yeah, simple, but it's important. I mean, the research part as well. If you go into an interview, right, and you don't know anything, it's like, why are you applying for this? I just feel like it's so easy nowadays with LinkedIn, with Indeed. I find people will apply for 100 jobs, and it's like they're just throwing it out there, kind of like waiting for something on the wall to stick.
Yeah.
What if you were to take an extra hour and find 10 out of these 100 that you really feel like you can email the CEO, you can find someone there that maybe you're already connected with? I find that part really interesting. So when it comes to actually building an agency and keeping the clients and keeping, the brands you work with, how does that work? Because every month, I would assume, I mean, you're probably, I don't know how it works, but like contracted in for X amount of time. Is it just having such a good relationship that they keep coming back to you? Because the world of business, I mean, AI, it's changing so much.
Yeah, I mean, we have clients that we've been working with for years, and we have clients where it's like, you're assigned to do something and then it's done. So it's always a mix. And we made the decision about 5 or 6 years ago to shift the agency to more of like a relationship-driven agency, where we want to have a roster of like 10 to 15 relationships, where they may not be consistently paying us, but there's going to be like 2 to 3 things a year where they're bringing us in for, versus constantly just chasing projects, because it's too volatile. You're always selling, and then you're not able to really build a relationship. Our best relationships are the ones that we have for long periods of time. We understand how their business works. We know their customers. We know their flaws. We know their strengths, and we're working together to ultimately like march towards a goal. And that's what I'm like the most proud of, where it's a true partnership. We're an extension of their team. So I look for the relationships where I can see it being like a multi-year thing. And if it means that we have to start smaller and like prove ourselves before we take on a bigger chunk, I'm totally cool with that. Not every relationship is easy. There's going to be good times and bad times. And if things are not good, you have to like be transparent. You have to be direct and work towards a solution. But if you approach the relationship from a good place and you're trying your best, again, it's a partnership. Like there's no single point of failure here.
What do you think about people asking you for coffee? Because I would assume you probably go to like, events or when you're speaking and whatnot. And when people reach out to you, I hate being asked for coffee. I would way much rather have someone say like, hi, I listened to this, or I have this specific question. But a lot of young people, they're asking founders to coffee. They're asking the CEO, for advice. What's the right way to go about getting attention from someone you dream of working for that you want to mentor you? Is it asking for coffee?
I think that it's a big first ask to just be like, I don't know you, and like, let's go out and get coffee.
Yeah.
So I would say, if there's like an on-road to the coffee where you could show interest by commenting on something that you wrote on LinkedIn or something, or, emailing the company and saying like, by the way, saw this interview, really enjoyed this, and this, keep going. And just trying to get on the radar. And I mean, we're not that big. I mean, if I'm not getting like people not trying to drink coffee with me all the time. but like, yeah, I mean, if someone like hit me up though, and it was like coming from a good place and I can tell it was going to be like a good vibe, I would, no worries. Like, let's do it.
Oh, you're one of those.
I mean, like to a certain degree, like maybe I'd be like, yeah, like, is there anything I can help you with? Like,
I think that's what it
jump
is.
on a quick call.
Yeah.
And like, or just, like shoot me some questions. Like, it's not just going to be like some unscripted thing here. I need to, like, cause I also don't want to walk into a coffee and try and turn it into a sales pitch.
Yeah.
Because, I also, we get like hundreds of emails a day of people trying to sell us things. So, it also can get lost in that.
Of course. At the beginning of this agency, what were some of the best decisions and risks you made as a founder and some of the worst? I mean, you can go into like, finances and hiring.
The best were boring. It was people that ran businesses giving us like little bits of advice that you like don't think of when you're in your 20s. Like someone was like week 2, we're like, do you guys have professional liability insurance? We're like, what's that? And we're like, You should get it. And we're like, oh yeah, cool. Insurance. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we'll tuck that one in with the LLC. Got it.
Yeah.
So there's like stuff like that. I remember like having like good financial conversations with people early on where we were paranoid about hiring. It was always like we're going to be on the streets in like 6 weeks. We can't take on someone's job. We're barely paying ourselves. So we were like super conservative with that. And I remember learning about like the cost of doing business, and I always took it quite literally. It's like, okay, so like there's the people you pay, there's your insurance, there's your office space, there's equipment, there's entertainment budget, travel, all that stuff, whatever that number is, right? Early days, maybe it's $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month. So your cost of doing business is $20,000 a month. You need it every month or you're not going to have a business. And I remember someone telling me like, you could basically hire when you have like that person factored in to your numbers, and there's like a 3 to 4 month runway of cash plus like your accounts receivable, meaning like good money coming in from clients you trust. If there's another few months there, that's already 6 months. That's really conservative. And I remember like always playing with that model with my co-founder. And that allowed us to like feel good about hiring. And I remember it was crazy. Like after year 1, we had like 9 or 10 people, and we were still paying ourselves, me and my business partner, like $3,000 a month, like no money. And I remember we looked at the bank account. We had like $1 million in the bank account, and we were like, we have like enough for like 2 years, where we don't even have to do any work, and we could still do it. And we were talking to someone. They were like, guys, pay yourself, and like that's too much money to just have sitting in a bank. Like, are you going to hire people? Like, yeah, we're going to hire some more people.
It was at this point just you two?
No, we had like 9 people,
Okay.
like 9 or 10 people. But like we were so conservative with that whole like cost of doing business thing that like we saved money and we weren't even paying ourselves. So they were like, don't pay yourselves a ton of money, but give yourselves like real salaries, and then like, you know, either invest some of that money or invest it back into the business and make some bigger hires that'll make your life easier. So like those financial decisions made the chaos like calm down in our head, because we didn't come from like an accounting background, a finance background, a legal background. We knew how to make stuff for the internet. And we had to learn the business side. So those little hacks like calmed us down.
Yeah.
And they were really, really helpful.
So some of that you kind of just like learned along the way. I mean,
All of it.
Yeah, okay, because that's what I always say. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of people don't become founders. They almost think about everything way too early on. You know, I have people reach out to me being like, I want to be an influencer. Do I need an LLC? I'm like, I didn't have an LLC for 13. What do you mean? I didn't have one for 13 years. I mean, that is ridiculous. Why are we all so like jumping the gun? Do you even have the idea? Do you know how you're going to make money? All of that stuff. If you could give one piece of advice right now to someone watching who like cannot figure out their dream job, is really just trying to figure out what they want to do but cannot figure out what that idea is. Maybe they want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe they want to go and work for someone. What's your piece of advice for them?
Well, I think that like you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. You should want to do something. And if that means that it's your own company, then great. But like whether it's starting a restaurant or a podcast or an agency or whatever, like figure out what you want to do first and make sure you're good at it. Like I always say, don't do things for money. Money will come, especially if you're young. You have I always say this, like you have so much time when you're young to make so many mistakes. And I even now, like I feel like you can make mistakes at 40 and still like reinvent and do like a bunch of cool things for the next 20 years. So I always say, like, if you want to work in any industry, do it because you love it. And that's corny, cliche advice. But the reason why I say it every time is because when we were starting out on Saturday and Sunday and at 9 o'clock at midnight, I was on Twitter or something reading about a campaign, reading about a technology company, going on Wikipedia and going wildly deep into skincare because I was about to sign a client. I was learning because I wanted to, not because I felt like I had to. I was up on trends because I was curious, not because I was studying. So if you're doing something because of money and because you are forcing yourself to be interested, you're going to get beat by someone who does it because they love it. So before you figure out if you're going to work for a company or be an entrepreneur, figure out what you like and then figure out the best path of doing it. If you like something and have no experience, It better be a really good idea because you're not going to really succeed if you don't have any kind of concept. So maybe go work for a few years and get some experience. And if you have like an amazing idea and you have I always say like this mental exercise, a risk and a terrible idea. That's what I always use. Risk is you understand the downside of your failure. For us, it was we would quit our jobs, we would fail, and we would have to go and find work with our tail between our legs at 26 years old. Okay, can you live with that? If you can, then it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
A terrible idea is when you don't understand the downside of your failure, meaning it could be so bad that like it could set you back a long time. So if you don't even know what failure looks like, don't do it.
Yeah. I feel like that's also the difference between, people who want a traditional job, who need that paycheck. They've never seen the other side of like the risk of what. And I think so much of that is also how you were raised, right? But like some of the most successful founders came from nothing. And that's why I think the risk for them is so much easier because they've almost seen both sides. So it's as easy as you said to like go back to what it was before because you've already seen that. So what happens though if you take the risk, right? Because the reward may be even better than you ever expected. And if not, you can always go back to what it used to be. John, do you have any final words you'd like to leave with?
No, this was fun.
Great.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you guys on social if they were interested in hiring Wonder Sauce, if they have any cool brands, etc.?
Yeah, we're pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find us with Wonder Sauce. I'm John Sampogna on LinkedIn, and then wondersauce.com is our URL.
Such an easy name.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much for everyone for watching. As I mentioned, I will put everything about John and Wonder Sauce in the show notes. And if you want to learn more about the company and the brands that they're working with, head to the website. Follow Dare to Be Fearless on social media, which is at Dare2 Be Fearless. And I will see you soon for a new episode of the show.
It feels like AI can do everything. Write the code, analyze the data. It can even suggest your next move. But there's one thing AI can't do. Think for your people. With AI, the real advantage isn't the tools. Anyone can do that. The real advantage is human readiness. That's why the smartest companies aren't asking, do we have AI? They're asking, can our people keep up? To build a learning program that keeps your people ahead, learn with Docebo. Docebo. Never stop learning.
That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom? Now that's a really big deal. Whatever your home needs, Wayfair has the selection, the savings, and over millions of 5-star reviews to back it up. Shop Wayfair.com today before someone else snags your big deal.
Wayfair, every style, every home.